It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. It seems like every day we hear a new story about sexual harassment. What was once whispered in back corners at work is now making headline news. More and more women today are being empowered to share their story, say enough, and take back their power. Today's guest, Gretchen Carlson, a former Fox News Channel host, decided to speak up about sexual harassment in the workplace. She has become the face of this prominent issue and was recently recognized as one of Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People of 2017. Gretchen works to help women reclaim their power against injustice and abuse. She is the author of the new book, Be Fierce, Stop Harassment, and Take Your Power Back. Welcome, Gretchen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Gretchen, thank you so much for being here. This is such an important topic. I'm in my early 50s, and just about every woman I know has experienced some form of inappropriate behavior. From the slip of the hand to the condescending comment to the dirty joke, it's something most of us can relate to. Tell us about what happened to you that put you on this journey.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I can't tell you all the details about what happened to me at Fox, which is part of the problem in the way in which, as a society, we've deemed the correct resolutions for these types of issues, because both silence women. So settlements, I had a settlement. I got a rare public apology, which was an added bonus. But I can't, say what happened exactly within the confines of that workplace structure. But I was unfortunately sexually harassed many other times in my lifetime. At the end of my term of being Miss America, when I was trying to break into TV, I had two experiences with high-ranking television and PR executives. They were actually assault, where they actually, attempted to put my head in their crotch and also forcibly kiss me in the backseat of a car, all unwanted advances. And then I also was sexually harassed at my first job in television in Virginia by a cameraman in a rural part of the state where I was, petrified. This was before cell phones. So I've had, unfortunately, these experiences, and what you said in the earlier part of the question is just so true. I think when I decided to file my lawsuit against Fox 17 months ago and do, an action that felt so lonely at the time, that it really opened up this entire national dialogue where women started discussing it at book club and in the carpool line and, at the grocery store. And suddenly we were realizing and coming to terms with the fact that unfortunately every woman still has a story, and that is outrageous. And we're seeing now the effects of more women feeling the bravery to say enough is enough.
Gretchen, with all of the things that you just described, thinking about the consequences of coming forward and knowing the power of the person who hurt you, how did you muster up the courage to do so?
Yeah, I think courage is a building process. It's not something that you decide to do overnight, this kind of a decision. Most excruciating choice of my life. I mean, I knew that I would be maligned. I knew that I would be called a liar. That's the way in which society has unfortunately treated women who finally have the courage to come forward. I mean, I will say that now in our current time, we're seeing a totally different effect. Mm-hmm. We're seeing the alleged perpetrators, issue apologies right away. That certainly wasn't happening. We're actually seeing, for the most part, people believing the women. That didn't happen just 17 months ago with my story. So I do think that we've had this immense progress and a cultural shift. And I think, building courage is something that I really talk a lot about in my new book, Be Fierce, which is so important for inspiration for people to pick up, men and women, because one of my entire chapters is about how we need men in this fight to help us build the courage, how they need to be courageous in helping us with this fight, and also how we parent our kids. My parents, they gave me the tools to know that I should believe in myself every single day. And so I think that I was tenacious and courageous as a child, too, and that that laid the groundwork for me to know that, this might be a really tough choice, but I believed in myself to do it.
Gretchen, we know this type of behavior is about power. From what you've learned, do you believe the abusers do it because they feel entitled and can get away with it? Or do you think they're really insecure and this makes them feel more powerful?
Both. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist,
Right.
but in my unscientific evaluation of all the stories we've seen unfolding since mine, it would seem to me that a lot of these alleged predators have immense insecurities within themselves. Were able to rise to a certain amount of power, and then for whatever reason, decided to go bonkers and decided to, show that power to women to put them down. I think that there's another, maybe third reason, and it's a little more esoteric, but, there are some men, I think, who feel intimidated by women becoming more successful in the workplace and in life in general. And, if they feel like they can knock them down, or if they feel like, wow, she might actually end up taking my job someday, then, this is a way that they attempt to do it. I think there are so many other psychological reasons and answers, but I think what you hit on is absolutely correct. It's usually about power. I mean, sometimes I guess the guys want the sex act to happen, but I think that it's almost always about having power over somebody who you think will never come forward and that you think you can control. But now we're seeing that change.
And I asked that question, Gretchen, because as women, we want to be able to look for signs. And I was wondering if there is something that we could recognize in the type of man who would be more likely to hurt us.
Well, I do think I think these men have insecurities within their own lives. And like I said, maybe it's a feeling of intimidation because they don't want women to rise up. I also think it has a tremendous amount to do with how they were raised, which brings me back to why I have a whole parenting chapter in my book. It's essential that we actually concentrate much more on how we're raising our boys than how we're raising our girls. And I ask parents to take a pledge in the book because, I'm lucky enough to have a 12-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter, but I am focusing more on the cues and the subtle nuances about gender equality that I'm giving to my son, much more so than to my daughter. Not that she's not as important, because she is, but this is about changing the way boys grow into men and how they treat women in the workplace. That is where we really need to be working the most.
Gretchen, as you said, there is a shift that's occurring. So what would you say to a woman who has experienced this to encourage her to speak up?
Yeah, I'm still hearing from thousands of people. Really, the impetus for Be Fierce, the book, was the thousands of women who reached out to me immediately after my story, which was a shock to me. And what I came to know was that this problem is an epidemic in every profession and every socioeconomic class. And I responded to all of these women because they felt like their voices had never, ever been heard. So their stories were really the impetus for the book. And now I'm still hearing from hundreds of women every day, now that we're in this tsunami and tidal wave where women are starting to be believed and not maligned. I encourage them to please tell their stories, whether it's on social media, joining the MeToo hashtag, or whether it's writing a blog, or whether it's going to local press. Because for the first time on this issue, the media is really paying attention to it. I mean, you have divisions in magazines and newspapers that are wholeheartedly only covering these kinds of stories now. Who would have ever thought that would ever happen?
Right.
So, my encouragement to women is, no matter where you are, if you're in Topeka, Kansas, or New York City, or Tuscaloosa, tell your story to somebody, because if there were ever a time for somebody to want to listen to it, it's now.
You say that it's just as important for men to get involved as it is for women. What can coworkers do when they learn what's going on behind closed doors?
For too long, men and women have been enablers and bystanders in the workplace regarding this issue. And what that does is it normalizes the culture within the confines of the workplace structure then. Because if you have a harasser and they get away with it in front of other people, then they just continue to do it, and it escalates. And then it becomes sort of the normal way in which that business operates, so then other people join in potentially. So, what I said earlier, it takes as much courage for men and women to stop being enablers and bystanders and to come forward and say, you know what, don't you ever speak to that woman ever again that way. But if they do, that would stop the actions cold. It would embarrass the perpetrator to potentially never do it again, and it would set a new tone within the workplace that people on the sidelines aren't going to accept it anymore either. So I also talk in the book about how important it is to change the way in which we do training for our workplace people, not just teaching them about what is sexual harassment, but encouraging people to not be bystanders anymore. Encouraging training that gives these people the same amount of courage as the victim to come forward. That, in my mind, will truly be the final tipping point in what we're witnessing right now, that when men and women who have been bystanders enablers stop doing that and come forward, we will truly see change in the workplace.
If a woman finds herself in this situation, what should she do?
Well, I have an entire playbook in Be Fierce, Chapter 4, and it's my 12-point plan. And I'll give you a couple of the highlights here, but I encourage any woman, even if they don't think that they're ever going to face this, because they still might, or man, to check out the chapter. Number one, you have to consult a lawyer. I would not recommend just immediately marching off to HR, because you really need to find out what your legal structure is, because the laws vary in every city and every state. Number two, you have to document and make sure that you take your documentation home, whether it's emails or texts or cards or whatever it is, or journals, and keep it at home, because I heard from so many women who did document, and then when they were retaliated against for coming forward and eventually fired, they couldn't go back to their office to get their documentation. Number three, make sure you tell at least 2 trusted colleagues. I know that it's hard, but you're going to have witnesses in this he said, she said culture that we're still in. So those are my 3 top points in my playbook, but I encourage everyone to check out the book to find out exactly what the plan is, because you want to make sure you have a plan. Oftentimes, women especially, we think we can just take it and take it and take it, and we can overcome it if we just work a little bit harder. And then one day we just suddenly decide, I can't deal with this anymore, so we go file a complaint. But then we don't have a plan, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So I really encourage people to seek out this information for help and for guidance.
The book is Be Fierce, Stop Harassment and Take Your Power Back by Gretchen Carlson. If you would like to learn more about the book or Gretchen and her work, you can visit GretchenCarlson.com. Gretchen, in our final moments, what's the takeaway? What would you like to leave our listeners with?
Oh my gosh, that one person, can definitely make a difference, but together we can totally rock the world. And look where we are. If you're listening right now and you're feeling like you're being put down in any aspect of your life, this isn't just about sexual harassment. This is about pay equity in the workplace. This is about being bullied as we're kids in school. This is about not getting a seat in the boardroom or promotion that we deserve, or any way that you feel you're being subjugated. Please know that you have a voice. And I hope that you'll know that I've set up a fund called Gift of Courage to help women have more of a voice. They can learn about that at my website as well, and all the proceeds from the book go back to that fund to empower women, girls, men, and boys.
Gretchen, thank you for being here and for providing insight that can help women become empowered. You've paved the way for many women to come forward and reclaim their power, and hopefully you're teaching men to do the right thing. So thank you for being here. This is such an important topic.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, CYACYL.com. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital magazine, take part in the book club, check out our team, and be sure to follow the show on social media. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.